We are back for the third quarter of the Paddock the Goals. So let's set up play for this quarter. And we're welcoming back from the Bullack Shire Council our Senior Flood Recovery Manager, Dan McLaughlin. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Joe. How are you going?
Good, thank you. Dan, we just had a really fabulous discussion with Camille White from the North Central Catchment Authority about the importance of up-to-date information in order to make good decisions and for future planning. Our community tells us that repairing our roads is the number one ticket item on their list of wants. However, it's not just as simple as getting a gradier out or moving a culvert, is it?
No, it's certainly not, Joe. As you'll be aware, we're a pretty resource-poor council. We don't have a large rate base. We don't have a large income from rates, so we rely, even on normal business as usual capital programs, we rely heavily on federal and state government funding, and certainly the damage from the October floods is no different. It's a very rigid process that you need to go through at both federal and state level, and we have been working with all levels of government to start to have some of these bigger, uglier areas funded, but it's a slow burn.
Mm-hmm. In recent weeks, the CEO, Wayne O'Toole, Travis Fitzgibbon, yourself, myself, your works team, members of our community development and flood recovery teams have all been out and about visiting the communities. What are some of the common issues that are being raised, and how are we looking at being able to address them?
Yeah, so I think what's really frustrating for the community, whether it be our road network or the department's network, it's that even in that initial, I guess, response phase and under the National Disaster Recovery Funding, they call that the emergency works period, which was extended to April 30. That's really a make safe period, so it's essentially bouncing all over the network, trying to fill potholes or do some sort of major patch versus any sort of proper rehabilitation, and we're now into the next phase, I guess, which the funding refers to as either immediate reconstruction or reconstruction of essential public asset. So the reconstruction of essential public asset is will be in that period until June 2025. And we have to keep going back out to these roads that continue to deteriorate, and hopefully we end up being funded to be fully rehabilitated, and we have to keep going back out and make them safe. So this we're all the same. We're driving past the same potholes that get patched, and then they blow apart a bit more, or particularly our shoulders are really, really low. Our shoulders on our sealed network. We're looking to do a shoulder program, but it won't happen. There won't be a large program before harvest. So we've now got obviously a large percentage of our ratepayers are linked to the ag industry, and they've had a harvest last year where the roads were obviously bad because they were starting to water for half of them, and we've got 12 months down the track, and there hasn't been a lot of improvement. So I think that's the frustrating bit, whether they're on our network or the state government's network. And look, it's frustrating for councils as well, but we need to jump through the same hoops as everybody else before we can get to work in fixing it.
In learning about these challenges we are facing, we're incredibly grateful for our community who come out to meet with us, who give us a call and ring in and ask us questions, and we strongly encourage them to keep doing that. And they come up with some great ideas. Sometimes some of those ideas aren't necessarily always workable, but we certainly value them. What are some of the suggestions, or where are we trying to work towards it? Get a little bit more collaboration, Dan, with respects to really trying to focus our efforts, given the fact that we're a bit resource poor, to the crucial things for our future planning and delivery.
So particularly around the transport infrastructure, Joe, setting flood aside, myself and a large contingent of council staff did somewhat of a tour in November 2021 now. And we went out to, I think, 9 different locations, and that was really community engagement around our road management plan, our transport asset management plan. There was 13 recommendations come out of that community engagement, and one of those was a reference group, a community reference group. So we're just starting to get back on our feet, I guess, as an asset and infrastructure team, but we'll be looking to establish a community reference group specifically about our road network and our transport. I guess our transport assets, including drainage. We're going to set up in the not too distant future. We're just conscious that we're not far from another harvest. So the reality is, it'll probably be in the new year when that's established. But and that's really just being able to make sure the community's feeding into the process, and as much as and equally we're feeding back out to the community the challenges we're having.
Following natural disasters, it's been commonplace in the past for community committees or reference groups, as you just described, to be established to provide advice about managing events and future planning. But as you just indicated, roads is one part. Then there's many other parts, we can't rely on the same reference group, and we're very much open to all voices. We really want to hear from all parts of our community. So after the Royal Commission into natural disasters, some of these reference groups or committees that were overarching over everything were found to be really quite counterproductive. So councils now, as you've described, taking the approach to go and really get on the road and visit our communities and look at ways that we can gather their feedback, enable them to be able to feed information back into us, and have that much more broader person-to-person interaction, as well as other opportunities through, digital means. Dan, can you take us about how we can make the community more involved and what our team is presently trying to plan for to make improvements such as our online communication, to make it easier for our community to put their ideas forward, and for us to even make it sure it's nicely sectioned into a nice folder to make it easy to follow, to reduce that paperwork, particularly during people who work during the night or day and have limited time to contribute.
Yeah, so we've certainly looked at some software packages. One being the Social Pinpoint, Joe, that you're very familiar with. That software will allow us to keep track of all our engagement with the said community. So if we are to go to Charlton, officers will be able to access previous, I guess, feedback and information from the community of Charlton. The reason why this is critical is we often go out, and I'm as guilty as anyone. I go out as manager of assets to talk to a community group that's only recently been talked to by perhaps the community development area, and they've already fed the information that I required or part thereof back through their initial conversation with the community development area, and there's just that disconnect and not one place. So we hope with the new software that's coming, Joe, initially it'll be piloted through our flood recovery. So it'll be recovery focused initially, and then we will we'll look to roll that out more broadly over the next couple of years across the entire business. And we hope it does two things. We hope it means the community only have to tell us what they need to tell us once, and therefore reduces the impact on volunteers in the future.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, we hope to probably put an end to the sticky note idea. Probably if we were to go around, we'd have thousands and thousands of sticky notes of comments that our community have given us. But of course, we have to be able to compile that information, have that information accessible for the rest of our teams. And that's what we're certainly working towards. And we're looking forward to rolling that out as part of our flood recovery process. I'd just like to thank you, Dan, for coming in today to updating us where we are in terms of our roads. And we're really looking forward to working very cohesively with our community over the next 12 months to 2 years, to really look at that future planning work as well. Have a good rest of the day, Dan. Thanks for coming in. And we'll be back very soon for our fourth quarter of the Paddock the Goals.